Good news and bad news in the fight for fair and honest elections in California. Voter ID gets more than 1 million signatures to qualify for the ballot, but Democrats, they've just revealed their hand. Dirty tricks, coming up what we expect and how we're going to fight back. I'm Carl DeMaio, chairman of Reform California and a California state representative, and we've got some good news and some bad news in the fight for fair and honest elections in California. I announced earlier this week that we did it, 1 million signatures, actually more than 1 million signatures for the California Voter ID Initiative. It only takes 874,000 signatures, valid signatures, to put a state constitutional amendment on the ballot using the Citizens Initiative process. We've got more than enough, but we now have to guard against dirty tricks from California Democrats who will try to deprive us of a fair and honest election on what the people want, voter ID. I'm going to talk about those dirty tricks in just a moment, what we're going to do to fight back. But there's also another developing story where Democrat politicians have decided to pass what is clearly an unconstitutional law to give their side an advantage in elections. And isn't it already clear that Democrats have overwhelming advantages in California politics and elections? But no. They are so greedy, so corrupt that they're not going to stop just with their existing advantages. They want more. They want to silence their opposition. And there's a new bill that I need to bring your attention to that we need to fight and defeat. Of course, if it passes, we're going to be filing litigation to stop it and take it all the way to the Supreme Court. But before I get into all of this news relating to election integrity and fighting for honest and fair elections, I need to invite you to get in the fight. Get off that couch, get into the street, get into the fight. Because if you want to change in California, if you want us to be able to restore any sort of political sanity and balance in this state, it's a full contact sport, my friends. We need the grassroots movement that we've already built to expand by 3 or 4 or 5-fold between now and the midterm election this November. So I'm inviting all of you. What are you waiting for? Get off the couch, into the fight. Go to the website, reformcalifornia.org, and chip in a contribution. And at the very least, sign up at the bottom of the website. Most of you are not signed up to the Reform California email updates. And this is so important because every Friday we send out a news wrap that gives you all of our news stories in one email so you can just look at what's been going on that week in California politics without the lies of the liberal media and their bias and their censorship. It also allows us to give you the plain English voter guide that we publish every election so that you know what you're voting on, particularly these false and misleading ballot titles that Democrats put on each ballot measure. If you're not signed up, you're not going to be able to get this important resource and share it with your friends, family, and neighbors. So please sign up at the bottom of that website. First name, last name, email, phone, and zip code. We do not share or sell any information. This is all about winning the fight in California. So please participate. With that, let's get right in. So this week I announced 1.3 million signatures collected for California voter ID. So first, let me say thank you to all the volunteers, all the supporters for getting us to this point where we got the signatures. And now we have a right to demand that the voter ID initiative be placed on the November 2026 ballot for a public vote. And the polls show that voters overwhelmingly want voter ID, 70% support, even from Democrats. 56% of Democrats support voter ID and a supermajority of independents and Republicans. But that's only if they get a fair election and know what they're voting on. So we have found out 3 dirty tricks that the Democrats are planning to use to stop us from having a fair election on voter ID. The first is they're looking through every nook and cranny of our process, the signatures and the text of the initiative to see if they can come up with an excuse that, oh, it's not legal, so we're not going to allow this on the ballot. They've done that in the past. They corruptly take things off the ballot and deprive the citizens of their citizen initiative rights. I have a message for Gavin Newsom and the California Democrats who have done this in the past. We are prepared We thought through this eventuality. We knew that this is one of the tricks that you would play, and we will sue your asses all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. And we are absolutely confident that they will issue an injunction forcing you to give us our state constitutional rights of citizens initiative. Because now it's very clear, after a pattern of abuse, of taking things off the ballot, blocking things from getting to the ballot for a public vote that the politicians don't like, that we are now looking at not a state constitutional question. This is now a U.S. constitutional question under the U.S. 14th Amendment, equal protection under the law, due process. So Gavin Newsom, bring it on, baby. We want the world to know, the nation to know, that you literally ignore constitutional rights on a daily basis. And voter ID on a 70% issue, you want to pick a fight on that? By all means, let's pick a fight on this. Not even wanting people to get a vote on this initiative. So the first thing we might have to do is deal with their legal tricks. The second trick is they plan to give us a bad ballot title. Instead of it saying an initiative to require voter ID, they're going to say kills puppies and kittens or something like that. It actually might be that bad. They did this in the past with the gas tax repeal. They changed the title from gas tax repeal to eliminates transportation projects and zeroes out road repairs, which our initiative on gas tax repeal didn't do that. It just simply said you're not allowed to increase the gas tax without a public vote of the people. Plain and simple, full stop. So they will put a biased title on our measure. All the more reason why we need to build the campaign I referenced at the outset of all you volunteering to get the voter guide, to share it with your friends, family, and neighbors, to contribute. We need gas in the tank because it's not going to be a fair fight, and we need to hustle to get the truth out as to what our initiative does, to look past the false and misleading biased ballot title and to look at the actual reforms inside the initiative. The third thing that they plan to do is put a competing measure on the ballot so that people are confused by, well, what am I voting on? Am I voting yes on this one or no on that one? They're going to put a phony voter ID initiative on the ballot. That's what they're plotting. And this deprives us of a fair election because people are going to be so confused that they'll vote for the bad measure that cancels out the good measure. And the media will let them do it because the media is in the tank for these SOBs. The media is in on the scam. They don't want a fair election on voter ID. They know that once we get voter ID enacted in California, once we clean up the voter rolls, once we require citizenship verification in order to be on the voter rolls, that it's game, set, match. That we get fair elections back and we'll start restoring the balance in our state. That's why the media will not come to our defense, will not call them out for these dirty tricks. And ultimately, we have to take the battle into the street. Oh, if you're saying, oh, but Carl, it's impossible. No, it's not impossible. It's difficult, but Mama didn't promise you a fair fight. We're talking about liars, cheats, and thieves in Sacramento that we're dealing with. This is going to take an all-on, door-to-door bar brawl with these cheats. And it's important that we are prepared for the November election. So that's why we need you to contribute and we need you to sign up. That's the update on the voter ID initiative. Let me tell you about the other scam that they've got going on here. They've introduced a bill, Assembly Bill 1984. Oh, the irony. Assembly Bill 1984, George Orwell. And it basically silences people who don't agree with the Democrats from participating in political campaigns, from donating in political campaigns. This bill, which is unconstitutional on its face, would basically eliminate the ability of a corporation to claim any ability under California corporation law to engage in ballot issue activity or any election activity. So in other words, they're not corporations, businesses, small or large, will be prohibited from defending themselves from bad policy. Small business owners won't be able to contribute to candidates who are pro-small business, anti-tax. Now, I'm not thrilled with all positions taken by big business or small business for that matter, but I will defend their First Amendment rights to participate in political speech, to use campaign contributions to express their points of view. But this bill eliminates their constitutional right. It's against the U.S. Constitution. Citizens United versus FEC 2010 said that you cannot limit the ability of a corporation or other group from expending money in political campaigns. You may not like what they have to say. You may not like the money that they put into politics, but it is a First Amendment right. If we start allowing politicians and government to decide who gets to participate in democracy and who gets to speak. And remember, funding an ad is an extension of your mouth. It is an expression of political speech. If we allow government to decide who gets to participate, we're done. You know who is not covered under this bill? You guessed it. Labor unions, government union bosses who overwhelmingly support the Democrat politicians. They are the ones that put in a bunch of money to rig elections under Prop 50. Here is this story from State Affairs. Labor unions powered Prop 50 win with millions in donations and ground support. Tens of millions of dollars from the labor unions. They actually were the ones behind Prop 50 before even Gavin Newsom got behind it. And take a look. You've got all these unions participating in politics. The FPPC, Fair Political Practices Commission, is required under state law to list the biggest contributors to ballot measures and against and for candidates. Take a look here. Tens of millions of dollars in each of these ballot measures. And take a look at here. The number one candidate in the state assembly who had dark money spent against him, yours truly. And I wear that status with absolute pride. Meanwhile, a Democrat gets the most support from the dark money groups. But no, they hated me and went after me. And look, they know that I'm not in their pocket. And so I'm not surprised. Now, here's who spent money against me. Government union, $414,000. Real estate, apartments. Another union, $145,000 from the AFL-CIO. Uber, $100,000. What did I do to Uber? Nothing. They got basically extorted by the Democrat speaker last cycle. They had legislation before the Democrats, and they said, "Hey, go after Carl." And they're like, "We like Carl. It doesn't matter if you want your bill to pass, you have to pay." A police union went against me. All these unions, SD Works, local union in San Diego, 40 grand. So you have all these groups. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have the ability to do that. It's their First Amendment right. I am not going to take away someone's constitutional rights, even if I don't agree with them. That's what a conservative point of view is. It's about freedom. I may not like how you use your freedom, but I will defend your right to have it. But that's not what Assembly Bill 1984 does. It says that the businesses are not allowed to spend, but all the other gaggle of billionaire owners like Soros and Reed, what's his face from Netflix, all the government unions who get to negotiate with politicians for salaries and benefits and pension spikes and all these goodies, they get to put those people into office with their monies. What we can do is we can enact reforms to what people do with voluntary funds. So, for example, I would be for a bill that said that if you are a government contractor and you have contracts before the state, you're not allowed to donate. Because if you're a contractor, you are willingly and voluntarily taking a contract. You're bidding on a contract. I'd believe that if you get a grant as a far left-wing NGO or far-right NGO, but by the way, far-right groups don't get government money. But if you are a nonprofit and you get a government contractor grant voluntarily, then as part of you willingly taking taxpayer money, you should be refrained from lobbying or engaging in political activity. There's a big difference between voluntary request for government monies and contracts and simply saying, oh, I don't like that corporation's point of view, and so I'm going to limit their rights to participate in politics. And that's what Assembly Bill 1984 does. So again, if you want fair and honest elections, we need voter ID. And we need to defend people's First Amendment rights to participate in the process. Go to the website, reformcalifornia.org, chip in a contribution, sign up so that you remain informed as to what's going on. And you can be part of our fight. Until next time, I'm Carl DeMaio, Chairman of Reform California and a California State Representative. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. But before you click away, please subscribe to this channel and click that notification button so you get updated when we post new episodes. Plus, like this video and share it with your friends so that we can help spread our message across the state.